I had words to make a day for you, I'd sing you a morning, golden and new. I would make this day last for all time. Give you a night deep in moonshine. If I had words to make a day for you, I'd sing you a morning golden and new. I'd make this day last for all time. Give you a night deep in moonshine. Welcome to Mirador Television. Break an egg.
Well, there we are. Here I am. Hey, good morning, Mirador Television out of Lewes in East Sussex. And I'm full of bounce and buoyancy this morning. It's a nice morning. And things have started at long last to go right for Mirador after a very long period of very tough digging in and trying hard to keep us going, and we have, and we're beginning to get one or two little signs that it's been worthwhile, and that people do appreciate what we're doing. We're getting people finding us from all sorts of strange places in the world, and there is one from Syracuse, New York. A lovely lady who has decided that she would like to follow us, and she's quite very young. It's not as if she's an old lady at all. So we must be doing something that appeals to the odd youngster with a bit of nous, a bit of sense, and so on. She is a mother, and from the picture that she sent, it looks as if she's got just a lovely, lovely child. But there we are. We are getting all sorts of reaction, and we're trying hard to go as fast as we can. Our prime purpose is to get you involved in this television thing, and we can. Yesterday, I sorted out an email, which we will start to publicize in a couple of days. I need to talk to our PR lady, Susan Harris, about it, and she indeed will help me, I'm sure, make sure that we publicize that as far and wide as possible, so that if you feel like tapping in and having a go at me, or having a go at something, or having just making a statement, is the way that we all like to do, particularly with social media. You are welcome to do so, as long as it's within the confines of not knocking me too far off the perch, and that there's no blood in the studio. Right? Okay. Let's see what's going on in the world. Now, I bet you that shocked you. That's not like the usual introduction to news, is it? It certainly is not. Well, we're going back to front this morning. We're going to start off with the Financial Times because, while it may seem a long way away, The Belarusian dictator Lukashenko had a jet diverted yesterday with a false alarm about a threat to the aircraft. It landed for safety reasons, and he immediately marched on board with his soldiers, with his thugs, and he then arrested a dissident journalist. Now, if dictators can get away with that sort of thing, we are in trouble as a world. Rightly, it says the Western reprisals are likely to be quite severe. And Belarus, whether they like it or not, cannot be totally dependent upon Russia. And I believe that actually President Putin is a bit ambivalent about President Lukashenko. He recognizes that he is old school Soviet Union, and that when he goes, that probably he will be the last of the old dictators that formed the old Union of the Soviet Republic. And he's in Minsk, in Belarus. And I know a little bit about that part of the world because I would go to Lithuania quite recently, and we would bring journalists across the border into Vilnius, where we would hold courses for them in not Western journalism, but what we hope would be fair and open journalism. There were always one or two out of a group of, say, 10 or 12 who would cling to the old communist idea that the boss was right, come what may. But generally speaking, they were a nice bunch of people, and they'd taken their life in their hands, because if you snuck across the border for something like that, Lukashenko, if he found out, was likely to make sure that you spent the rest of your days in a rotting prison. So those people have a bit of hope. Some of them would be now mature journalists. They were mostly in their early 20s when I was training them. The one thing I do know is that the Belarusians are much like other people from that part of the world, is they love a party, and they love singing folk songs, and they love drinking beer out of tankards. And we had several very, very good evenings together. And I'm very pleased that we had that experience, and I'm very unhappy that Lukashenko has managed to lock one of them up. Whether it was one of mine or not, I have no idea. I don't recognize the name necessarily, but then hundreds actually go through my hands, as it were. So I wouldn't know. Right, Marcus. Don't abandon hungry kids. That's the headline in the Daily Mirror. What they're saying is Marcus Rashford, who is taking a keen interest in the plight of children, is saying to the government, we've got a lot of hungry kids, and it's time for you to take a look at this situation. I don't have the detail on hungry kids. I'm assuming that because apparently he's a very decent bloke, Marcus Rashford, is that what he says is absolutely honest, if not totally accurate. Who knows? I'm not sure. Well, I wasn't sure up until when I was made homeless a couple of weeks ago that this could happen to children in Britain. But now I believe that things can happen to anybody in Britain. I'm quite sympathetic to that headline. The Revenge of Dominic Cummings. There's already blood all over the carpet in Westminster and over our institutions, like the BBC and the NHS and Scotland Yard, the Metropolitan Police. So a little more spilled in Westminster when Dominic starts to blow the gaff on what happens in government behind the scenes is going to add to the flow channel down the gutter. The only thing is, of course, is that in the long run, the unfortunate thing is most of you, and I say most of you, because I believe that our society has got to take much more interest in politics than it does. I know it's a dirty word and it's a boring word in many respects, but in the long run, they shape our lives, and it is going wrong at the top. And we've got to start to ask questions as to why. But I can imagine what's going to happen when Dominic gets cracking. It's, there'll be some things that'll come out. Now, the Daily Express says a bold call will be on green list in 2 weeks. In other words, we'll all be able to go on holiday, and we'll be able to come back without too much interference. And that life will, in that sense, start to get back to normal after June the 17th. That's the Daily Express. But now I'll go back to the Mail in a moment, is the Daily Telegraph says a vaccination won't mean an end to self-isolating. It says, just because we've been vaccinated and we're coming to the end of lockdown and so on and so forth, this self-isolation is going to be necessary under many circumstances, not least of which he's coming back off holiday. So there are two dissenting voices. And actually, one of the I don't want that. One of the other papers, the Guardian, agrees with them. The Guardian seems to have dropped off. The Metro is Pirates of Europe's Skies. They also are on with the Lukashenko situation is forcing planes to land. The Times is now hitting something on the we sometimes get excited about having Greens in government because they're almost a one idea party, and life isn't like that, unfortunately. But the Times says rural areas face the threat of 400,000 new homes. We're going to do exactly what we tell the people in South America not to do. We're going to pull down trees and we're going to rip up fields and so on. And then when the animals have gone and when we suddenly find that the earth is crumbling and so on, is we will turn back and say, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Too bloody late then. Let's think about this. Do we all have to have a new home to begin with? That's a question. Do we all have to spread out and have a plot? I don't know, but we get into a situation where once something becomes a sacred cow, is nobody dare question it. Well, I'm questioning: do we need new homes the way that they're being spread? First of all, we're not using brownfield sites. In other words, sites that already had buildings. Quite a lot of them are standing empty. So the idea was that brownfield sites should be used first. Yeah. Good old government bafflegab again. The other thing is that do we have the right pattern? Now, we tried high-rise apartments in the 1950s and the 1960s, and they were a disaster, an absolute disaster. People went mad from loneliness. There were no neighbors. They'd come from houses where they were able to lean over the garden fence. But does that mean that there isn't some alternative form of housing? Have we got a think tank going that is looking at things and saying, this is what we should do? The Japanese are very good at that. They're very good at overcoming, because they're a small island. And there were a lot of people. And they have the same problems as us. And they actually do examine them and come up with some very novel ideas. I mean, this isn't to do with housing, but one of the things that actually I found amazing when I was researching something one day is that there is a building, it's an office block or whatever, and it's got a road going through the middle of it. They built the office block around the road. It's stunning. And that's the sort of innovation that they've got. So rural areas face threat of 400,000 homes. I understand that. But as you will probably all know now, I have lost faith in civil servants. I don't think that any of them are any good at whatever level. The only thing that's got going for me is Boris said more or less the same thing before the last election. I think he's been rattled and knocked around now because he's the prime minister, and he suddenly finds that, yes, minister, he needs them. And the son, it's just a star has been robbed. Now let's see if my Daily Star is going to let me down. Well done, the Star. If you're wondering who's to blame for this effing weather, Well, thanks a lot, Greenland. He's, he's, the star says, anyone wondering what is going on with the weather should look to Greenland. Its conclusion was reached after an exhaustive 30-second investigation. It adds, good for the star. It gives me a laugh every day. I hope I'm increasing I don't know. I mean, the star is the star. It will have its own political point of view, but it's turning into one of the funniest papers, and it's giving me a great giggle every morning when I take a look at it. So I do recommend that you get by at least once, and then take a look and see how amusing it is. Well, that's what the papers have to say. Now, where are we on this? Well, the weather today is going to be a range between 6 degrees and 15 degrees. It's going to be sunny with a mild breeze. Now, if you're really looking to go out, because it looks as if it's quite nice outside, the best time is between 2 and 5 this afternoon with lots of sun. So that is Mirador's weather forecast for today. So, there we are. My goodness me, we're moving on, aren't we? Now, what have we got for you this morning? I think that there are a couple of things that I'm going to have my rant a little later. It's only 8:21 yet. Boy, we've packed the first 20 minutes in. And I think we should pack some more in too. But let's see. I know what I want to do. Because we are inordinately proud of Lewis. It is a beautiful, beautiful town. And despite many factions, and there are some at the moment trying hard to ruin the landscape with some monstrosities of buildings. And the funny thing is, that we protect very fiercely our environment here. People come and say, what a lovely town. Oh, my goodness me, it hasn't changed that much. Oh, it's fantastic. And then some dickhead who is a planning inspector gives some business developer who is also a dickhead and has no understanding of the town at all, permission to build some monstrosities right in the heart of the community. I mean, you can't make it up, can you? This is community living. This is how the central government and the authorities treat small towns. Anyway, it is a beautiful town, and I think that this is one way of finding out about it through the camera of Susan Harris. She's there. There we go. Thank you. Now you can hear me, or you should be able to. Let's alter the camera slightly, because I do like leaning back in the morning. There's no reason why I sit up straight. Lewis really is quite a beautiful, beautiful place. One of the things I'm going to do now, if you don't mind, is because we've got a new intro. And I would like to play it to you again, because the theme music is out of the movie Babe. And I always think that the most amusing movies have the strongest messages. And basically, the story really is that Babe is a pig, and that the sheepdog owned by Farmer Hoggett is laid up, and that Babe actually saves some of the sheep from a savage dog, and they begin to trust him, so they do what he says. And when Farmer Hoggett finds that he hasn't got his dog for the sheep trials, he uses Babe, and to great scorn, he walks out, and he actually, Babe, of course, marshals the sheep perfectly, and Farmer Hoggett, who is the moment of scorn 3 or 4 minutes earlier, becomes a hero to great cheers. And that is so often like life. But there is a wonderful scene where Babe is poorly, is not feeling at all well, and Farmer Hoggett doesn't know what to do. So he actually does a dance to this particular tune. And it's one of the great movie moments. And he finishes the dance trying to please the pig, and looks at all the farmyard animals gazing in at him through the window. And he has to sort of look his proper self. He's the boss. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. If you haven't seen it, watch it. And if you have seen it, watch it again. It is terrific. And it's got so many messages. But this music actually is used in Babe. It was used on Top of the Pops, but also it was actually written for organ. And the orchestral version is terrific. If you go, just trawl through YouTube, and you will find an, of course, orchestral version of this. I keep wanting to say virgin. I don't know why. Perhaps I've got ladies in my mind this morning or something. Oh dear. It's far too early for that sort of thing. But the orchestral version is, and in fact, it was written by, and I can't pronounce it, so it's Saint Saens. It's Saint-Saens, and find it and listen to it. I'm going to play it now, simply because I just would like you to listen to it and know where you can find it, whether it's Babe or whether it's in an orchestral hall. And there are half a dozen orchestras that have featured it, because it is beautiful and it is for organ. And what we've used is an organ piece. So here is Mirador's new entrance sting, if you like, if you want to call it that, but also a magnificent piece of music.
If I had words to make a day for you, I'd sing you a morning, golden and new. I would make this day last for all time. Give you a night deep in moonshine. If I had words to make a day for you, I'd sing you a morning, golden and new. I would make this day last for all time. Give you a night deep in moonshine. Welcome to Mirador Television. break an egg.
Well, there you are. It is lovely. It's beautiful, and it heralds in um, a, a new dawn every morning with gorgeous music and music that means something. The song version, incidentally, has only 4 lines. Only 4 lines of lyrics, and as one critic pointed out, when it's sung, the vocal version is extremely powerful, and yet all it's got is 4 lines of lyrics, which are repeated throughout the piece, and yet it is hugely moving, hugely moving. It's one of those pieces that send little prickles up and down my spine, and I'm glad that I've remembered it and discovered it. Anyway, we'll get on with the program. Just a reminder that it's going to be a reasonably nice day today, but that dear old wind is going to still be there, I'm afraid, and it's going to not behave particularly well for us. It's going to take the edge off the sunshine, but there is going to be plenty of that. The odd shower. There we go. Hiccups again, right at this time of the morning. There you go. They strike it every morning at 8:32. Why is that? I have no idea. And I haven't been drinking. Well, I don't think I have anyway. I don't remember it. Well, there are a couple of things which hopefully that we're going to look at this morning. And there should be a couple of things here that I have got to play for us. One of the things that I particularly keen on is that Lewis gets its act together and starts to get back, not necessarily to the way it was before lockdown. Most of the world is not going to get back to the way it was before lockdown. Those of us who lived through it will have to cherish that as a memory. Although remember, my life is mostly just memories. But I have got a little clip here, and I think that this is the right one, of what Lewis was like in Christmas of 2017. And the one thing that I would like to see a return to is the streets thronged with people. So if I've got the right one, let's take a look. There, you should be able to hear me now. Okay, that's just a little snippet of what Christmas was like in 2017. It was full of joy, full of fun, and full of family things. And I hope that after the disaster of this past Christmas, when friends tried to make the most of it, but there was gloom and doom, and it really was not a Christmas to be remembered, that we can get back to some sort of fun in the streets. And that we can really do things that are worthwhile. The high street traders have been trying for a long time to bring gaiety and light to the Lewis High Street, the upper part, because to be quite honest, it looks as if the Grinch has been there and has nicked all everything that was there in the first place. The only thing is it wasn't there in the first place. And they have done their best. But every time that a fundraising thing starts, seems to be some problems crop up. It appears partly is that there are difficulties attaching lights to some of the stanchions in the high street. And perhaps what we could do is we could ask Stephen Catlin to take a look at that, because he has just managed to now get the railway authorities to take a look at lights which they own along Station Street. I didn't know that. Apparently, the railway companies own the road running from the station up through Station Street. How's that for a barrel of laughs? Anyway, they were good enough, I think, with pressure from the council to install lights, but now they won't switch the buggers off. So people who live or sleep on Station Street find that there are lights blazing in their windows every night, and they can't get to sleep. So perhaps there are things that can be done, both to brighten the town and to also cure light flashing in through the windows. All right, where are we now? Let's just remind ourselves of the weather. Why not? We should. Between 6 and 15 degrees today. That pesky breeze is still there, but it's moderate. And there's a good and sunny spell between about 1 and, let's see, well, 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock. A really good sunny spell according to the forecast. That's the time to get out if you want. But bit by bit, the weather is improving. It's only shocking freezing you can sit outside. But that's the weather in this. Okay, let's go back to business. And I'm afraid now is the time for me to get a bit harsh and to be a bit naughty. So let's go and get naughty. No. Oh. Well, actually, in searching for what I suppose is the bad news, is I found the good news, and the good news is that this is in the precinct which Rick Symes in his Lewis Crescent page on Facebook is saying we should turn this precinct into the town square. I couldn't agree more. And that's started to make it look nice. The trouble is that, well, we've picked it as being a hero and very good for the town. Of course, there are always those who find a reason why not. The people in wheelchairs can't get by, and it's blocking the entrance to Superdrug. Well, none of those things is absolutely 100% true. But even if they are, is surely, instead of just saying, well, don't do it just because we can't do these things, is let's find a solution so that we can have something that is gay like that. And in fact, I would like to see about 10 more. Believe me, one of the great experiences of my life was going into the square in Skopje, which is it's got a new name. I think it's Northern Macedonia. It used to be the former Republic of Yugoslavia, Macedonia, and it's got an old town that really is very good, and that town it has got a square where you can't move because the restaurants are all got tables there, and it's the liveliest place that you could ever wish to meet. They managed to leave a space around the edges, but you have to go to a waiter and say, "Which restaurant are you?" And boy, it is a joy dining there. We would spend hours because of the feeling of camaraderie and so on that is there in that town and that square. So why we can't replicate that? We're basically northern dour people, aren't we? Well, let's put a bit of gaiety into our lives. Let's start to shout and scream and yell. And let's be like Farmer Hoggett. Why don't we dance once in a while to something like a piece of music such as we just played? Aye, why don't we? Why don't we? Now let's go back to serious business. I think that yes, because I do have serious business, and it's 8:42. It's 8:42, and we've got another 30 minutes. No, 20 minutes before we have to go. And one of the important things, and we will be looking at these things each day, as this. So, what is that good-looking chap? Obviously, reasonably well off and sparkling and scrubbed in the bathtub. What's he doing in there? Well, that's me, of course, and I'm amongst there because I am homeless. And believe me, is the way that the homeless are treated is nothing short of criminal, and it's the only people to blame are us. We well-fed, fat, middle-class people who pay lip service through our public servants, and who. They don't like that word anymore, servants, but that's what they are, public servants. They are there supposedly to serve us. And that doesn't mean that they are any status less, but that is their job. That's the job that they took. And when it comes to homeless and the other rant that I'm going to go on as well throughout this next couple of weeks is mental illness, where we've also let everybody down. And I say we, because what we do is we pat our people on the head. We actually we get involved in charities. We appoint our future king to the head of a charity. Oh, and that's all well and good, isn't it? And we have no idea whatsoever of what's going on the ground and what it really is all about. Well, I can start to tell you. The first thing is there's a re-education process that needs to go on. There is a famous scene in a movie about John F. Kennedy. And in that movie, the Black rights activists are gathered in front of the White House in their thousands and thousands and thousands. And the Kennedys really didn't expect it. They didn't expect that they were going to have that sort of thing with Martin Luther King heading it up. And Jack, the president, turns to Bobby, his brother, and says, "Jesus, Bobby, what the heck do we do?" And Bobby says, "Well, we always do, Jack, nothing." And actually, that is exactly the way that our leadership treats both the homeless and mental health. They do nothing. They pass it around. Now, it's quite by accident that I'm homeless. And I feel guilty that I'm even bothering the state. But nonetheless, what I'm doing is I'm finding out how it works. There are some good people. Of course, there are good people. But the system as such is bust, and it needs looking at. And it's something that Boris promised before the last election. And I hope that now that he can pay a little less time to COVID, that he can actually start to do something about our governance. Because, first of all, throughout lockdown, I kept on getting letters from the Department of Health telling me that I was vulnerable, that I would have to be very careful, that I wasn't to go out. It almost said, don't look out of the window. It almost said, look at the walls. I was vulnerable, right? Now that COVID is ending, is for other reasons, I'm vulnerable. And that's mostly because of my Parkinson's. I'm vulnerable. So that word vulnerable is supposed to signify pay a bit of special attention to these people, because being vulnerable, if we don't keep an eye on them, is they could peg it. I mean, putting it bluntly, that's what it means. Vulnerable. Well, that is on almost every memo and every piece of paper that circulates around amongst government and governance and the people in charge of all sorts of things. Vulnerable. But the one thing that they've actually banned from their dictionary, the word cannot be found in a civil servant's dictionary, is action. What you do is you say they're vulnerable, and then you pass the piece of paper on. You talk to somebody else. Vulnerable. Oh, what action should be taken? Well, that's not our problem. We've identified they're vulnerable. Well, I'm supposedly vulnerable. And the only action that has been taken so far is to shove me into a place in I was going to say Newton Arts again, New Haven, which is okay, it's clean and so on and so forth. But I'm not supposed to walk upstairs. So I counted them yesterday. I've got 15 stairs to get to before I can even get to my room. If I want to go to the bathroom, I've got to go up another 6 or 7 stairs. And in the long run, I suppose, I personally don't get too worried about it, except there are only 2 ways that you can die from Parkinson's. Other than that, Parkinson's doesn't kill you, it's only complications. There are 2 direct ways that you can die from Parkinson's. Is one, getting pneumonia, and that's easily done. When you're vulnerable, you have to go out in the rain to do various things. You come home with a cold and you wonder. And the second one is if you actually break a leg or break a bone. The chances are that you'll never recover, that you die because of the Parkinson's. So what have they done? They've shoved me into a place, no matter how nice the guy is, into a place where my vulnerability is exposed, right? Now the doctors say, what? What have they done? They shouldn't have done that. And they immediately put on their piece of paper, this man is vulnerable. You should do something about it. And off the piece of paper goes. That's the last they see of it, until such time as I go back, if I ever go back. So that is passed on to people in the council. Vulnerable. Oh dear, dear, dear. What action should we take? Don't swear, please. Do not have the word action mentioned, because we've taken it out of our dictionaries and our thesauruses. There is no such word as action. We occasionally get around to doing something, but generally speaking, is no. Vulnerable? Oh, so what? It's a pity, isn't it? Just say we'll do something and leave us to it, and then we can go back into the roundabout. Well, okay. I don't think that I'm going to die from all of this because I'm a tough old bird. And one of the things that I learned very quickly when I first got Parkinson's, which is almost 10 years ago, is how to fall. you learn how to fall because Parkinson's makes you stagger. As I often say, is when the pubs are open, it's full of people who are drunk and staggering and trying to pretend not to be drunk. Whereas I'm sober and staggering and pretending not to be sober. That's the big difference. But you learn various tricks of the trade, but you shouldn't have to, because there are many, many people who are vulnerable, who are being put into that sort of situation. Not much investigation at all. And if you actually talk to people quietly in the civil service, they say, no, our job is to fill in the form. Where the hell does the form go? Well, it goes to somebody else. And they fill in a bit of the form. And away it goes. And that's the way it passes on, around the system. Now, okay, you can see, I mean, first of all, I started dancing around like Farmer Hoggett this morning. So I'm in good spirits. But there are lots and lots of people who are homeless. And don't think in terms of the homeless. Look at that piece of clip of video that I gave you. There is a bloke who is well-dressed, reasonably well-dressed, looks okay, healthy, and so on and so forth, and he's homeless. That's me. And there are many, many, many like me who never had no idea that they would be homeless, and they're suddenly thrown into the maelstrom. And what happens? What's the first thing that happens to you when you're homeless? The first time that you actually say, well, where am I going to sleep tonight? And you can't answer the question, is you suddenly feel quite abandoned. Yes, you're vulnerable, but that's not the vulnerability that the people at the council are talking about. They're talking about we've got to find a form to fill in to see whether we've got a solution. And if we haven't, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Is when they are looking for a house for you, is 3 strikes and you're out. If you turn down 2 houses and you turn down the third, then you will never get another one from us. What sort of BS is that? What sort of approach is that? Surely we should be saying, listen, we've got to try and find a solution at all costs. Now, the lady that I use as my example for mental illness still has not been housed because she's difficult. Oh, goodness me. She's got a mental illness and she's difficult. Vulnerable. Oh, put her in the vulnerable file. That means no action. Who mentioned action? That word is not allowed in these offices. It really is. It's around and round and round, and everybody using an excuse that it's not on their form. And that is just simply not good enough. The system is not fit for purpose. And Boris said we would take a look at it. Now, admittedly, it's a bit worse in Lewis and Eastbourne than it is in the rest of the country. How do I know? Because I've spoken to people who live here, who work in similar situations in London, and they say that they found the local people very intractable. They're very difficult to deal with, whereas in other parts of the country, they are not so difficult, which seems to me that the first thing that should be done is, before Boris even gets involved, is the chief executive, I believe his name is Cottrell, should order a root and branch review of what's happening. After all, Lewis put their hands in Eastbourne. There's barely a civil servant left in Lewis. If you phone Eastbourne, or if you phone Lewis and you immediately get transferred through to Eastbourne and you say, this is happening on such and such, is the first reply you get is, perhaps you can explain exactly where it is. I'm not from Lewis. I don't know it. Those are the people that are our servants. Those are the people that are trying to help. Well, they're not. And the whole thing is a complete and utter disaster. And it wouldn't be so bad, but when I first came to Lewis, up until about 1957, 58, 59, there's a chap called John Crawford in charge, and he ran a very, very good ship. But it was just Lewis. We had nothing to do with Eastbourne. And as Stephen Catlin keeps on pointing out, there are 2 different communities. One is a city community, and the other is a rural community. Different needs, different necessities, and we've piled them into one, just as we've done with our surgeries, which are now becoming a disaster. The doctors that we've got here are delightful doctors. They're excellent. But once the NHS starts to push them into these bigger is better, is the whole thing goes wrong. It's not worth me pushing to see my doctor. Because all I do is I get to talk to a lady on the phone, and at one stage I would have known all the receptionists. I've been with the same surgery for almost 30 years, and now I don't know anybody, including the doctors. I've got a dedicated doctor, guaranteed by the government. Guaranteed by the government. I've got a dedicated doctor, and when I ask to see her, it's going to be 4 weeks before I see her. But what the hell? What's the difference? Because when I couldn't stand up, and I needed help the other night, I actually phoned the surgery, and whoever it was, the woman, she wasn't unpleasant, but I said, I need to talk to a doctor. I can't stand. I've fallen down. And she said, well, I'll see. I can get a doctor, but it'll be a couple of days before you can talk to him. What am I going to do? I'm going to lie here? The system has just folded. So the homeless have no hope. And that really is what I was looking for, is a hope. A spirit of hope. And every time I talk to somebody, it's another bloody form to fill in. Well, if that's getting to me, can you imagine those people who perhaps don't have the sort of future that I'm able to look forward to? I'm still working. Now, most of you can tell. I've still got a voice. I still actually get on my high horse. Wow. Most people don't. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dearie me. More tomorrow. And more the next day, until we start somebody saying vulnerable means vulnerable. It's not just a word on a piece of paper, and the word action has got to be put back into our dictionaries. And we, the people, are those who can make sure that happens if we care. But it's my view right now, do come and have a go at me. It's my view is we pay lip service. We go to food banks. We do things like that. Yeah, we get involved in charities. But do we understand? Or do we care? No. I don't see anybody from a charity rushing up to somebody who is having an altercation in one of the supermarkets because they have got a mental stress. All that happens is that security is called and throws them out. And if they keep on, the police are called and they throw them in the jug. Oh, what a wonderful solution. That is a wonderful solution. Oh, dearie, dearie me. I've got to go. Thank you for being with me. I've had a lovely morning with you. So far. Toodle pip. Toodle pip. If I can find where we toodle pip off. Yeah, well, that's it.